Hey, you. Yeah, you. Thanks for hitting play. And because you did, I have a great show for you. I have some tales from the trip featuring a COVID Karen story. I'm comparing the movie The Vanished to a restaurant that I know you've been to, and I'll settle some roommate debates. I basically did this podcast in like 24 hours, which at first I thought there was no way this could be done, and I shouldn't even try. And then I was like, on second thought, drop the beat. Welcome to On Second Thought. I'm your host, Zach Skula, aka Zachary the GR8 on social media. Back on the mic, and it feels good. I'm pumped to be here, pumped to be talking to you guys. Thank you to everybody who had reached out to me the past week about the first episode, took the time to message me, text me, share it, and even listen. So thank you to everybody who did that. It really means a lot to me. I enjoy doing this. It feels natural, and it was nice to get that feedback. People saying, hey, keep doing this. This sounds awesome. It sounds like something you should do. So I really appreciate it. I just got back traveling from Austin. And like I said in the last pod, and if you're new to the pod, I believe in the virus. I'm conscious of the virus. I'm respectful, but I won't let it control my life. I do everything that I'm supposed to. I mask up. I socially distance, but I'm still going to live my life. So I had a flight out last week from Detroit to Austin. I had a layover in Las Vegas. The people that were on that flight were there to have fun. I think there wasn't a lot of connecting flights. I was the one. Everybody else there was really ready to get at it. And if you know me, you know I love the people of Detroit. Like, I just love them. Their spirit, the way they interact, like, I love Detroit people. And it was very evident on this flight. I was like, oh man, this is the energy that I need. I don't know. There was a big group of them, and they were, like I said, ready to get it going and get after it in Las Vegas. I could tell. 8 a.m. vibes, that didn't matter to them. They were ready to go. And there was a big group of them, I think. I don't know. Maybe there wasn't a big group and everyone just knows each other, which also could be true in Detroit. Kind of what it feels like. But there was one person who was like the last guy to get on the flight. And I'm trying to be honest, but also and realistic without exaggerating. It took him like a good 90 seconds to get to his seat because every person that he had known, he had to dap up on the flight. Like, you know, when you say goodbye to someone when you're leaving a party, he did that coming on. And it was like he didn't even actually know there were some people were going to be on this flight. Like, he was surprised to see some people. And I know that he dapped up everybody on the flight because he dapped up the person next to me, the person before me, and the person sitting across from me. Like, he hit all of them and then saw me and was like, I don't know you. I was like, hey, you don't. But I was like, this is good energy. And then I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, wow, this is an interesting situation. I'm probably going to end up talking about this guy dapping everybody up during a pandemic. I think he had gloves on. I'm not sure. But anyway, then I was thinking about, I was like, I wonder if we're going to clap when we land. Because every flight that I've ever been on that's taken out of Detroit, I think we have clapped when we've landed. So I was like, I wonder if we're going to clap. And sure enough, we landed. Claps came through, the hallelujahs. They were ready to get at it in Vegas. And then Vegas to Austin arrived last Thursday. And I loved it. I seriously loved it. The city, the people, everything was amazing. I didn't see one bad spot, eat any bad food. I didn't meet one bad person. Like, it was just awesome. I was out there visiting John. And I was just super proud of my brother. He's hopped on a little rocket ship and just keeps leveling up. And it was so good to see all the hard work he's put in and everything that he's been working on and just see it manifesting. And I was just really proud of it. And to see the city, because I've been planning to get out to Austin since he moved out there. And it just, one thing led to another. Haven't made it. So this was my first time in the city. And it was amazing. Like, it has everything you need. Water, hikes, college campus, the Capitol's there. So many businesses, food trucks, and dogs. Like, are you kidding me? The most dog-friendly city I've ever seen. Like, over 50% of the bars and restaurants that you can go to, dogs are allowed. And it's not like one of those restaurants where dogs can go, so like one person brings their dog. You're pretty much in the minority if you don't have your dog at that restaurant or bar. Like, we went to a park, and the dog-to-person ratio might bend to like 1-to-1. Dogs actually may have outnumbered the people there. And it wasn't even a dog park. That's the thing. It's not it is a park that dogs just kind of take over. Um, if you're looking for like a family trip and you don't want to leave your little doggo, Austin, book it. Bring him or her. She will have just as much fun as you, I promise. I'm actually surprised they let John move there without a dog. Like, I'm serious. Everyone there has a little four-legged friend walking around the city. Everybody. But Austin was awesome. Uh, I had a great trip. I met a lot of awesome people. I had a lot of fun. I had everything that I could have wanted. It felt very natural there. So that's my next move. I'm claiming it now, manifesting it daily. By the end of the year, I'll be living and working in ATX. Write it down. We're out here speaking things into existence. And what could be more powerful than a podcast that stores these words and gets replayed over and over by you guys? So I'm claiming it now. Zach and Winston, take Austin. It's coming. That's my goal by the end of the year. So like I said, I loved it. Loved the city. I did have a little experience, a little hiccup. And of course, it was about traveling during a pandemic. And like I said, I abide by all rules. I do my part. Mask up, sanitizer. I don't fight it. I totally understand. But what would traveling be if I didn't hit you guys with a little story, a little tales from the trip? So let me fill you in. This was Sunday, and we were going to like Super Bowl pre-party. Headed to one of John's friends' house before the game, and it was a lot of fun. Like I met more cool people. There was probably like 12 of us. So we're just talking, mixing, mingling, having little different groups of conversations. And this girl comes up to me and she's like, "Hi, I'm Brittany. Like, who do you know, or who do you know here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm Zach. I'm from Michigan. I'm visiting John. He works with the host, blah, blah, blah." And she was like, "Okay, so confession. I knew that. I actually kind of been wanting to ask you, but I've refrained. But I was like curious, like if since you've gotten here before you came, if you've been COVID tested." One, LOL at the people who say things like, "I wasn't going to bring up," or "not to mention," or "I was proud I never asked you," and then brings up or ask whatever they just prefaced that they were proud that they didn't, then to do it. I'm like, thanks for holding that question in for 45 minutes. Like, was it that pressing? I don't know. Anyway, and I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, it's a fair question. I wasn't irked. I wasn't annoyed at this point. I told her that I hadn't been tested right before I came, but I have been tested before, and that I felt fine before traveling, and I didn't feel like I was at risk to anybody. And I joked to her, I was like, I should have known that something like this was coming, because I did notice when you walked in, she was wearing two masks. She was a double masker. No problem with anybody who double masks. Do you, boo boo? I should have just seen this coming. And then this is where things took some turns. She kind of perked up and laughed and was like, "Yes, I take this very seriously. I'm a big double masker." Then she was like, "I like to call myself COVID Karen." So at this point, I knew, one, there was no chance her and I were going to be friends. And two, this conversation was definitely headed down a path that I did not want to go down at all. This was not the pre-Super Bowl vibes I needed, on this Sunday. And me and John kind of looked at each other like, are we really talking to someone who's a proud Karen? Like, her name is not Karen. She just likes to call herself Karen. Like, she even introduced herself to, I think, John later, like in the week when he saw her, or other people, as Karen. Like, I can't stress this enough. Her name is not Karen. She's just fully embracing the stereotype and adding COVID in front of it. COVID Karen. So I was like, okay, here we go. Here we go. This is going to be fun. And so she, is kind of just talking about the virus. And she goes on to tell us about how a few weeks ago in DC, she not only called the police on someone for not wearing a mask in a store, but when that person left the store because she was on the phone with the police, she left the store with them, trailing them so she could give the police the coordinates of where they were at until the police arrived and dealt with it, I guess. Like, that just seems like a lot. Like, that's not my cup of tea. Again, I take the virus seriously, and as everyone should, this felt extreme to me. Like this was like a citizen's arrest. I don't even know if that's a thing. She followed them out there, which it just seems like you're just doing a lot. But whatever. So this is what I'm dealing with. This is the person who I am conversating with. But like after hearing this, I kind of picked on some. picked up on something. So I'd asked her, you wanted to ask everybody, like when they got here, if they had been tested, or just me specifically? And she kind of smirks and is like, just you, making that like little teeth clenching emoji face, like, just you. And I'm like, okay, why me? And she's like, well, to be honest, it's a little messed up, but because you're traveling during a pandemic. And I really don't trust people who do that. Like, it's really not smart to travel during a pandemic. And so I take a second, I take a beat, and I'm like, I remembered she had said something during her story. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. But when you were telling your story, you said a few weeks ago in DC, you called the police on that lady. So did you witness this via FaceTime or? And she was like, yeah, I'm from there. I've actually been in Austin the past 5 days. Take a beat. You guys heard that right. She's been in Austin for 5 days. So I was like, so another way to say that would be you're visiting and traveling during a pandemic. And she was like, yeah, it's kind of hypocritical, I know, but I also know I'm safe and I really just don't trust you. Now, if you know me or if you don't, you'll soon learn I hate hypocrites. I hate hypocrisy. Like, you are no different than anybody else. Rules don't apply to different people. You don't get to practice, feel one way and, act the other way. So this has irked me. And now I'm annoyed. Her and I are the exact same. But she thinks I'm the dangerous dumb one for traveling? No, I'm not going for it. So there were a lot of ways I could have gone about this. And the younger, less mature Zach would have sarcastically poked fun at it, probably drank 4 shots, re-brought it up, likely louder and more aggressively, and then dismantled her a whole argument, instigated multiple reactions from her until we either had to leave or she realized I was not going to let up until she left, or probably tried to get me removed. And I probably would have had some snap stories thrown out throughout that mix. But thankfully, I have evolved and matured. I know John is listening to this like, thank you, Zach, for not going about that. Young Zach, definitely. But like I said, I've evolved and matured. So I let her continue with her reasoning and her story and was like, you know what? That's very interesting. Well, because you are so conscious, COVID Karen, I should let you know. I woke up with a little tickle in my throat that turned into a few small coughs that I just wanted to make you aware of. And her eyes like kind of opened a little bit more. And she took a small step back and was like, wait, really? And I was like, yeah, it was pretty dry and deep, to be honest. Now, is this true? Yes, slightly. But do I think it was COVID? Or do I think it was because I went to bed at 4 a.m. the night before and woke up at 9:30 a.m. And John keeps his room temperature at a very nice, dry 74 degrees at night. Like, so did I cough? Yes. Was it one? Yes. Did it continue? No. Did she need to know all that? No. I didn't mention that. I told her this with the hopes that not only would it allow me to exit the conversation rather quickly, but would also save me from chatting with COVID Karen again. And you know what? It worked. Mission successful. I didn't see her the rest of the night. So same result as younger Zach, but way more tactful. So shout out to my growth. I'm evolving out here. I wanted to share that story with you guys. Because 1, it was wild. And 2, I was very happy with how I handled it. And like I said, I didn't really meet one bad person. I'm not even calling her a bad person, although I don't like hypocrites. That's just not my cup of tea. Anybody who proudly reps Karen Squad, not for me. But she doesn't count because she was traveling too. So she doesn't count as someone bad that I met in Austin because she was just traveling. But much love to Austin and all the people I met there. It was a lot of fun. It was a great city. I can't wait to get back. I actually worked on this pod in the airport and on the flights. I'm right now recording about 3 hours after landing. Thankfully, I had a movie in mind to do. Shout out to my cousin Patrick, who recommended it to me. I watched it, did all my notes at the airport. And so let's just get into it. Explore, ignore, Netflix, The Vanished. Let's go!
Are you still watching?
Can we go fishing when we get there, Dad?
You and me, we are gone fishing, sweetheart.
I'm really glad we're doing this. Some family time.
Come on, kitten. It's getting cold out here.
She's not in there. Taylor! Taylor! Where is she?
We pray to God that our daughter Taylor comes back to us unharmed.
I'm real sorry to hear about your daughter. How old was she?
Why did you say was?
Police told us that we could help search tonight.
What if she was distracting you so that her husband could take our daughter?
I think it's time for you and Mrs. Michelson maybe to go to a hotel.
I'm not going anywhere until my daughter is back here with me safely.
We should be out there searching.
On the south side of the lake, we found the body of a camper.
We are murderers.
We gotta stick together on this.
We don't have anything, Paul! Tell me what we have without our daughter!
I know all about you. I know everything.
Please. Acceptance means letting go. Anything you want to tell me?
That was the trailer of The Vanish, streaming on Netflix. And so a reminder to all of those about this section of the pod, it's called Explore or Ignore. And so what I'm trying to do with this segment is I'm trying to review movies or shows for you, giving you everything that you need to know so you can help decide whether this is a movie that's worth watching for you. And so I understand that I may pick movies that you've not seen before, and that's kind of the point. I want to help you be that guide. I'm telling you everything that you may want to know, everything that you consider when you decide if this movie is worth it, worth clicking play or not. So this week's Explore Ignore, as I mentioned, is streaming on Netflix. Have you ever heard of it? Netflix. Did you know that Netflix started... Okay, I'm just kidding. I have no new anecdote or background information on Netflix that you probably don't already know. So we're just going to get into the movie. The Vanished is a 2020 American psychological thriller film written and directed by Peter Facinelli. The film stars Thomas Jane, Anne Hatch, and Jason Patric. The movie follows a couple who will stop at nothing to find their daughter who disappeared during their camping trip. So we'll run through a little bit of the stats. As I said, released in 2020, it's rated R, live action suspense thriller, released by Paramount Home Videos. The director, Peter Facinelli, you may know him as Carlisle Cullen in the Twilight series. He was also known for his role in Mike Dexter in the film Can't Hardly Wait, which is came out in 1998, but it's really a good one. It's if you've seen the movie, you know who he is. He was also a regular on the Showtime comedy series Nurse Jackie. The cast, Thomas Jane, I didn't know much about him. He was in Boogie Nights. He was in The Punisher, and he's also the main character in the HBO series Hung. So if you've seen that, that is who the dad is in this movie. And he has a lot of movies that went straight to on demand. Like when I was looking up his IMDb, it was like movie, VOD, 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 movie, VOD. I was like, whew, that's tough. Anne Hatch, you may have seen her in Donnie Brasco's Spread or Cedar Rapids. She's really just been in a lot of television shows, and she once dated Ellen DeGeneres. So maybe if you recognize her, if you're like, where have I seen her? Maybe that's where. And then Jason Patric, probably definitely the most well-known actor in this. He's known for his roles in The Lost Boys, Rush, Sleepers, and I personally know him in an episode which he played himself in Entourage. So that's how I was like, Jason Patric, don't steal those lines from Vince. That's how I knew him. The budget is unknown. I looked, guys. They did not want me to know how much they spent or made on this. Runtime is 1 hour and 55 minutes. And it sometimes feels like it. That's a big commitment right there. 2 hour movie. And there's definitely some scenes they could have cut out. So it's 1 hour and 55. The IMDb score is 5.7 out of 10. Rotten Tomato, the tomato meter gives it a 21%. And the audience score isn't actually available because the audience score, you need at least 50 people to rate it. And apparently, as of today, 50 people have not rated the movie on Rotten Tomatoes. So you're putting some of that together. 2 hour movie, 5.7 IMDb score, and a 21% on the tomato meter. You're like, I'm out. This movie must be trash. And okay, you're not wrong, but you're not right either. It's not that bad. That tomatoes meter score kind of surprised me. Kind of. Because when I was actually watching this movie, I was like, whew, this is tough at times. Like, I felt like sometimes the acting was trash, like not good at all. Um, I don't know. There were some positives. Like I loved how the movie looked, like where it was filmed. It was a really pretty place. I did some research. If you're watching it and you're like, I wonder where this place is, Lake Nickel in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Looks like a cool place. I would be down to check it out. Um, the deputy in the blue hat, that is actually the director, Peter Facinelli, who, like I said, played Carlisle Cullen in Twilight. So he, writes himself a role in it. And truthfully, I'm watching this movie and, the sheriff comes in. And the first thing I'm thinking is like, this is definitely, if I lose my kid, this is the sheriff I want on it. He just looks super sheriffy, whatever that means. That doesn't really mean much, but he looks, you'll see what I'm saying. Like he's not Chuck Norris, but he's definitely the sheriff I want on the case. And he definitely gives the best performance in the movie, which makes sense because he's by far the best actor in this movie. But like I said, there's a low rating score for a reason, because there are some parts in this movie where you're like, okay, I don't know if I can buy into this. Like kind of in the beginning of the movie, I start raising some eyebrows. Like I'm already seeing holes kind of in the movie, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like there's a scene in the beginning where after they've lost their daughter and the sheriff comes, and he hands them a walkie-talkie, and he gives them it, and he says like, we'll be in contact. And then literally the next second, 1 second later, he hands them a card, his business card, and says like, if you need me for anything, call me. So I'm just watching this like, what was the point of the walkie-talkie? What was the point of the card? And when do cops ever give someone else a walkie-talkie and they're like, you're now on the force? Like, why did they do that? So really, in the first 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm a little hesitant about some of the structure and soundness of this movie. And like, there's even weirder scenes that'll continue, in like a part where the dad like sneaks all around the camper and like goes into his secret hiding spot and pulls out something and then goes outside to smoke it. And it's a cigar. Like, no, it's not a cigarette. It's not weed. It's a cigar. He did all of this. Like he had to hide a cigar. I don't know. So there's parts like that where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about this movie. I can definitely see where the 22% tomato score is, because like it's annoying. Like you kind of get annoyed. And I know I'm not selling you on this movie, but I truthfully actually believe that you should explore it. Sometimes you want to see a bad movie. This isn't one of those cases. Like it actually does get better. And it also takes you on such a wild ride. It's one of those movies where you kind of need to see how this ends. You're like, okay, you've taken me in 12 different directions. Like, let me see where you're going with this. Like it is a movie that kind of makes you mad. Like you're mad, those movies where you're like kind of yelling at the main characters. You're not really rooting for them. You're like, you guys are idiots. A lot of the actions that they do. I definitely think that you will say this a lot throughout the movie. I found myself doing that a lot, being like, you guys are so dumb. Dumb. That was dumb. Why'd you do that? That was stupid. Thinking that often. But like I said, honestly, I do really believe that you should check this movie out, because the ending is good. It makes up for some of the stuff that you have to get through to get to it. And there just becomes a point where you've invested yourself so much that you're like, okay, who took this girl? Like, let's figure this out. Because there's a lot of layers to a movie that has like 8 characters. So I found that interesting. So we're going to go to the categories now. So the first one, the Goldilocks Trailer Award, which, like I said last week, this is the trailer too hot, not enough info, too cold, or just right? And honestly, I think this one is just right. It shows how many turns the movie's going to have, but you will not understand everything. You're not going to see everything coming just by watching the trailer. It kind of accurately portrays the movie. Like, I think some trailers try to make a movie look like it's something it's not, or make you expect something that's never coming. I found this one to be accurate. So to my surprise, being very anti-trailer, this one I would also say is just right. And actually going into the in or out time, I say watch the trailer. If you watch the trailer and you're good with it, you're like, okay, this looks interesting enough, I think you'll be good enough to make it through the movie. But if you want to know on the in and out time, which is when you should know if you're in or out of the movie, How long does it take to get good? I would say that by the 22-minute mark, you will be intrigued enough to know if this movie is for you to keep going. Like I've said before, this movie is kind of unique in the fact that I think there's also an out time. Like, I think there's a point in the movie where you're like, I think I'm leaving. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I would say that's at like the 55-minute mark. 55 minutes to an hour, you're going to be like, okay, I think this movie's actually doing way too much. Like, I can't, it's no longer realistic. I don't buy any of this. And you're like, I'm going, I'm leaving, I'm turning this off. But around that time, like, this is around the time where, like, the husband is making dinner and his wife is like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm not wasting any more of my time worrying about our daughter. And the wife is like disgusted. And she's like, she's been missing for 3 days. And then he just looks at her and he's like, after this, would you like to watch a movie? And it's like, at that point, you're like, this is so not real. Like, who after 3 days would be like, hey, honey, I made mashed potatoes and let's rent a movie? Like, that's not real. I'm not buying it. But get through it. Stick through it. I almost left at that point. But I'm telling you to stick through it. Give it another 10 minutes. The next 2 scenes draw you back in. And I think you'll be invested enough to want to finish it. You'll want to see how this ends. But it'll take you on a lot of turns. Like, even there's some, like, at the minute and 15 mark, you're like, I can't do this anymore. The movie has done too much. And it really does do a lot. And you're like, I cannot do this. I can't buy in. But I think at that point, I'm telling you to just push through because you want to see how this all plays out. You want someone to make the sense of all of this for you. And the only way you can do that is if you finish it. So at that point where you're like, nope, I do not buy any of this. Stick it out. Finish the last 30 minutes. It's worth it. It is. Is this movie Gummy approved or not? So is it good to watch high? Is it enjoyable high? Is it amplified high? I'm going to say no. If you want to figure this movie out, if you don't want to fall asleep during this movie, if you want to actually leave the movie understanding it, then don't do it. Don't do it. But I would say save the Gummy for after the movie. Whoever you watch it with, pop that Gummy, and then you guys can talk about what you just experienced because it's a trip. So not Gummy approved for the movie, but I would say after, if you want to like really think about it, pop that Gummy then. The rewatchability, I'm going to go as high as a 9.5. Like, this is one that you're going to probably tell people to watch, as I'm doing now. And I think you're going to run it back to make sure that you've captured everything that you're supposed to capture and understand everything that this movie had going on. Franchisability, 0. This is one and done like Crawford at Michigan. That's a Wale line if you guys don't know. But yeah, there is no shot that Vanish 2. If there is a Vanish 2, run away. That will be super duper trash. There's no chance that this is a franchisability. There will not be a Vanish 2. Mark my words. Weather Report. I really believe it's got to be 0%. 0 chance of tears. That's what the Weather Report is. 0 chance of tears for this one, unless you're very sensitive to bad acting, because there are some parts that are like, but maybe it might be part of the movie. It might be strategic. Looking back on it, I don't know. But I believe that you're going to get a 0% chance of crying during this movie. The next segment is Numbers Don't Lie. And like I said before, I couldn't find them, which probably isn't good. It's probably not good for them. I did see that it trended on the Netflix top 10 for a few days. And while I was doing my research, I found a site that was like, to know the numbers and the viewership of this movie, email us here. I elected not to do that because it's not that deep. It's just not that deep. So I couldn't find out how many people watched it or what they did at the box office, which, like I said, probably isn't great for them. They did a good job hiding it. Moving to the WikiLeaks Google report, the fun facts, the way that you're going to help you win trivia, which I doubt that there will be any trivia questions about this movie. So I only have 2 for you guys. The director, Peter Facinelli, said that the original title for the movie was Hour of Lead, which was taken from an Emily Dickinson poem. And he said, for me, it meant that the hour of heaviness when you've had something really harsh happen in your life. This is the main character's hour of lead. But then they changed it to The Vanished, which I don't know if that's really an upgrade at all. Like, that's a pretty basic title. I don't know if Hour of Lead would have been much better, but I don't know. I'm not really impressed with either. I don't know. It's not great. And the only other thing I have for you guys is this movie actually reunites actress Anne Hatch and actor Thomas Jane, who also played a married couple, albeit divorced, in the HBO series Hung. The ending score, as I've alluded to before, it's definitely a +5. Like I said, in this section of the reviews, I'm only going to give you a +5 or -5 because I don't want to give anything away. So it's either on the positive side of 5 or the lower side of 5. And so I'm going to give it a +5 with an asterisk. Because it's one of those movies that you kind of want to stop watching, like I've said, but you get too invested and you kind of need to know what happens or how it ends. So you stick with it. And it definitely is on the higher side of the 5. It's worth it to make it to the end. If the ending was even like 6 or below, I would tell you we would ignore this movie and I would say skip it. But it's +5 with an asterisk. You got to make it to the movie for the movie to be good. So do it. Do it for me if you watch the movie. Do it for yourself, honestly, because you're going to invest a lot and be like, I need to know how this ends. Deja vu or Vujade. This is if the movie is familiar or not. And I'm going to say this is Vujade. These are kind of the movies that I favor, so this is what I'm going to be drawn to. This is probably what I'm going to review a lot. I find the storyline and the events that take place to be a different take on a kind of a common theme, a missing kid thriller story. Like we've seen that. But I think that the way they do it is a little bit unique. The ending is unique. It's fun. It's worth it. So I would say this is Vujade. It's not going to remind you of much. A new category we have, if it's worth the price of admission. So like this is it worth paying for the service if I don't have it to watch this movie? And this is definitely no. This is do not pay for Netflix just to watch this movie. Netflix is already always up in their prices, so I would not recommend that. But also, who doesn't know someone with a Netflix? Like, if you don't have access to Netflix, I don't know what to tell you. That's not a good look. And for our final category, food for thought. Here, where I compare a movie to a restaurant and why. And this one is unique for sure. The movie's kind of unique. I think the comparison is unique. So bear with me because we're about to go on a little trip, okay? If I were to compare this movie to a restaurant, this movie is the restaurant that you visit while you're out of town on like one person's recommendation at the gas station. It's like a small, dark, limited menu, but everyone says like, if you like brisket or if you like pizza or whatever it is, then you got to go to Slick Rick's or Dancin' Denny's or something like that, whatever it's called. And so you go because you don't know any better. You take the one recommendation and you walk in and it's a little underwhelming, but whatever. And you order your food and you order your drinks and they don't have that one beer that you asked for. So you order another one and they don't have that one. So finally, you ask for something else and you settle on something else. And everyone listening knows exactly what place I'm talking about. When you go there that you don't really want to go to, you walk in, it feels underwhelming. The menus are sticky. There's like that one server, she's like 55 doing the whole place by herself, but you're here and they told you that the brisket was good. So you're like, all right, we're going to do this. So you finally land on a drink, you put your food in, and then you wait. And you wait. And it seems like there's like 6 people in this place. Like there's always like 5 people and 3 of them are regulars sitting at the bar. Yet it's 40 minutes and you're still waiting for your food. And then food comes out and you get excited and then it goes to the table next to you. And then you start doing that like restaurant math where you're like, did they get in there before me? Like, weren't we? You're like looking at the people you're with. You're like, weren't we before them? Or did they mix it? Is that mine? And you're like looking like, did you order that? Like, that's what's happening here. So the food comes out and it goes to another table. And it's been over an hour and you've had it. And you go to find your waitress and you tell them, you're leaving. I'm not doing this anymore. And then she pops up smelling like a smoke break, but she's got an extra side of bread and she's got that first beer that you asked for. And you know what? You're like, all right, I'm going to stick around. Tammy's all right by me, I guess. But then it's another 15, 20 minutes and your food still hasn't come out yet. And now you're an hour and 10 minutes into this, waiting for your food. And you're like, no, we can't do this anymore. I don't care how much bread Tammy gives me. I'm out. And then bam, the food comes. This time it's yours. And it doesn't look bad. And it's here. So you might as well eat it. You were going to leave. You're disappointed. The place, everything. But you're like, look, we've already invested this much time. Let's eat it. So you do. And it's good. It's not great, but it's good. But you're still a little disappointed in the service. And then before you leave, the manager comes out and he's apologizing. And he orders every dessert on the menu, comps the whole bill, gives you a $100 gift card for the next time. And then as you're walking out, you find a $20 bill on the ground. And you're like, you know what? This was all worth it. I think this was all worth it. That's what restaurant this movie is. You've been recommended the movie. You've been recommended this place. You get there, you're committed, and then you're out. And then it brings you back in, and then you're out. And at some point, you realize you're too invested to not find out how good this food is. You got to find out what happens to little baby Taylor. So you do. And the food, it's okay, but it's not worth waiting for. But right before you leave, the manager comps everything, gives you free stuff. Money's falling from the sky. Your favorite song's playing on the jukebox. And, you know, it's one of those places that you're in the car driving on your way home. And you're like, you know what, babe? I'm glad we went there. That place is all right by me. Shout out to Slick Rick's. And I think that is what this movie is. Once you get to the end, I think you'll be glad that you finished it. All's well that ends well, right? And those are our categories. So to review, the movie is a thriller movie streaming on Netflix that barely slides into the Explore for me because there's a lot left to be desired, a lot of WTF moments, a lot of weird acting choices and kind of holes in the story. Yet, ironically, that's kind of also what keeps you going. You got to figure out why I'm watching this. You got to get to the end. You got to figure out what happened to the kid. So the movie's going to pull you in a lot of directions and it'll probably make you want to pull your hair out a few times, but it's worth it. No gummy needed. Prepare to run it back so you can figure everything that happened out and make sense of it all. But honestly, Netflix has vanished is an Explore for me. I think it's worth it. If you check it out, let me know. Tell me that you know exactly what restaurant I'm talking about. Tell me that you agree with the review. Tell me that you're glad that you made it to the end. Internet therapy coming up next.
You know, you really need some help, but a regular psychiatrist couldn't even help you. You know what I mean? You need to get involved at the university level. Like where Freud studied and have all those people looking at you and checking up on you. That's the kind of help you need. Not the once a week for $80. No, you need a team. A team of psychiatrists working round the clock. You need to go to like Vienna or something.
As always, shout out to Wale for the intro. Welcome to Internet Therapy. This is where I like to share my opinions or give my advice on situations I either find on the internet or you guys send me. And sometimes those come via text or DM, or if you want to be really anonymous, you really want to keep it low key, you can email me on secondthoughtpod@gmail.com. Let's get into the first one. Roommate controller. This person writes, Yo, Zach, love the first ep. I was hoping that maybe you could help me out. I live with one of my best friends. We met in college and been living together for a little more than 2 years. This past weekend, I went back home to see my parents. I left on Friday and came back today, Monday. He came back Monday. When I got home, I went to play the PlayStation and the joystick on the controller is broken. I'm trying not to swear as much, so I'm going to say broken. It wasn't registering, and after messing with it, the joystick fell out. It worked Thursday night when I left because me and him gamed together. My PlayStation's in the living room, and it's 100% mine. I don't care if my roommate uses it. I don't ask him to ask me or anything. When I got home, I did ask him about it. He said he didn't know anything about why it was broken. I know by snaps, he had like 2 friends over this weekend, so maybe they did it. I was saying that I think he needs to replace the controller because I know it worked when I left, and now it doesn't. He's saying he doesn't because he didn't know about it or he didn't physically do it. This is kind of making me question if we're best friends like I thought, because if this had happened the other way around, I would pay. So who should have to replace the controller? Okay, well, hey, one, I appreciate the love and support. And I think this is a good question because this is something that's bound to happen to anybody with roommates, anybody with friends. It's kind of part of living together or just being friends with people. And as we get older, we start to have our own possessions. So in my opinion, unfortunately, I think you might have to bite the bullet on this one because it is yours. It's physically your property. You do lay some responsibility, some for leaving things in a common area, a common room for anyone to be used. And sounds like you've created the relationship that he can use it whenever he wants. And like I said, ultimately it is yours. I think if your roommate admits, or if you know somehow that they were using it over the weekend while you were gone and you can prove it, then that should be enough evidence for him to pay for it, to replace it, whether it was him using it or the guests that he had over. But it doesn't sound like that's something he's going to admit to using. So kind of a tough spot. And if he is your roommate, he should want to get another one. Like you said, you guys do play it together. So he should want to. But I don't know, either of you guys' money situation right now. So maybe he's pressed for it. Maybe he can't do it. And maybe he can. And maybe he just doesn't want to admit to it. Or maybe he really had nothing to do with it. I don't really know. But I don't think a $60 controller is worth a friendship. So that's kind of something you have to ask yourself. Really, you guys both do. If it gets to that point where you're upset and you don't want to talk to him or whatever, is $60 just worth it to just alleviate the whole problem? It actually kind of reminds me of a time with John, which he's just sprinkled all throughout this episode. But one time we were living together in Grand Rapids and we were both out during the day, like getting lunch and a beer. And we were outside after eating, like waiting for an Uber or something. I don't really know. And he and I were just cracking jokes. And I had said something to him and he was like, shut up. And he went to swipe the top of the bill of my hat down, like swipe at it. But being lightning quick as I am, I moved my head back and he missed the bill of my hat, but he did hit my phone that was in my hand, which flipped and then hit the sidewalk. And I remember we both just saw it there laying facing down. He was like, please, please don't be broken. Please. And I was like, please don't be broken. I picked it up. It was shattered, much like the rest of my Saturday that day. And I'm obviously upset about it. And he's like, damn it. So I don't know, it was either later that day or the next day or something. I was like, I think that you should replace my screen. And he was like, well, it's not my fault that you moved your head and that you don't have a case on your phone. And I was like, yeah, but I don't expect people to just go around swiping at me. So I don't, if I drop my phone, that's my responsibility, but you hit it. And the bottom line is we're both kind of right. We're both kind of wrong. I mean, to this day, I still kind of think that I'm more right on this one. And maybe he thinks the same thing. But the point is that a phone screen isn't worth a 10 plus year friendship, or in your case, your best friend that you live with. Like, could you imagine if someone was like, hey, what happened to you and your best friend since junior high? You were like, oh, he broke my phone screen or my controller and wouldn't replace it. So we are no longer friends. Like, damn, petty wop. So I don't know. We kind of met in the middle. We split we split the price of the phone. And then he also said, just use the pop cans or the pop bottles from all of our Fulton Place bangers to go towards the repair. And that was that. It was done with. Inconvenient, yeah. Sucks for both of us, yeah. But, I mean, was it the end of the world? No. So I guess in this situation, I would see if anyone or he admits to using it over the weekend. And if he doesn't, then there's no way of knowing. There just isn't a way of knowing if he used it. But maybe he'll meet you in the middle like John and I did, split the difference because you guys both use it. If not, then I think you're just going to have to replace it yourself. And I mean, it's up to you if you want to leave it out in the living room again, or if you want to leave it out when you go out of town. Either way, if you don't, I mean, I guess you should respect and understand that if he's not going to bear any responsibility when you're not there of replacing it or taking care of it, then it's not your responsibility to leave it in a common area. And I guess maybe it's just in your room. So I don't know. I guess that's kind of how I feel about it. Sucky situation, I know. Hope it works out. All right, I think we're just going to do one more today. So I think this one's very interesting, and I just find this one very intriguing. And probably not common to a lot of people, but maybe. So I don't know. This person says, my fiance is Korean American, and I'm American. We met each other's parents before, and she's met my grandparents, but I've yet to meet her grandparents because they live in Korea. We're planning a trip to Korea as soon as it's possible so that I can meet her grandparents. She's asking me to bow to her grandparents when we meet, since it's respecting the elders is a big deal in Korean culture. Not just like a casual dip, like a full-on 90-degree bow. I said I'd rather not, since I found it emasculating, and I don't just bow to anyone. She said it was important to her culture, but I pointed out that she didn't bow to my grandparents or parents. I kind of think it's hypocritical. Ooh, hypocritical. I think it's hypocritical to expect me to bow to her grandparents when she didn't bow to mine. Her grandparents aren't my superior just because they're age. Why should I have to bow? She said it's just one tiny thing I could do to earn their respect, but I said if it was so tiny, it should be fine I don't do it, and that I respect myself, and that's why I'm not going to bow. She said she's just going to have to respect my decision, but she thinks I'm being an asshole. What do you think? Okay, this one is an open and close for me. Yeah, you're definitely the asshole in this situation. Like bringing up that she didn't bow to your grandparents, or they like, did they want her to? Were they offended? Like, why does that even matter? Why are you engaged to someone of another ethnicity if you're not willing to abide by their norms, especially in their home country? Like when I was overseas, I had to do or say things that weren't normal to me in America. But guess what? I wasn't in America. So I had to show respect to people and to the country that I'm in. You're going to Korea. Like if you were meeting her grandparents at a Chili's in the United States, I could see what you mean. Maybe, even though I still don't think it's a big deal. But you're going there. You're playing on their turf, their rules. So you need to abide by their customs. Like, are you the guy who refuses to take off your shoes in someone else's house because you don't ask them to do it at yours? So I really just want you to shut up. Like, why is this emasculating? I don't understand guys like this. If I dated a girl and was trying to argue that showing respect to her parents or grandparents made me feel emasculated, I hope she would leave my ass. Like, your ego should not be that fragile. I don't care if it's a 90-degree bow, like you said. When you date, or in this case, get engaged and married to someone, you are combining both of your cultures, perspectives, life experience into one. You both should learn and understand and adopt each other's practices. That's what creating a new family does. I've dated girls and I've had to, if I had to go do something in a specific way or stay away from certain topics, for one, my girlfriend's happiness, I would. And for two, if I would do it because I wanted them to like me. Do you not want them to like you? I don't, like, bro, get your sensitive ass out of here. Either bow like you're stretching those hamstrings or figure it out if you're married to like the right girl. Because this won't be the last time that customs come into play. And a 1-second bow is not that serious, especially because you're going to Korea. Their place, their home field advantage. House rules, baby. Did you ever play beer pong? House rules. You're there. You should show respect. It's not that serious. So in the efforts of trying to keep the pod more condensed, I'm only going to do 2 today. I was actually going to write one from like the perspective of Morgan Wallen, but I decided I'm not going to. All I'm going to say about that is you don't get drunk and adopt new vocabulary. If you say it drunk, you probably say it sober. Don't get me wrong, he's a very talented guy. I don't even like country, but someone did send me some of his songs recently, and they're not bad. He's talented. He just has more apologies than songs. So anyway, that is internet therapy. Next week, I think we're going to do like a love relationship focused pod with Valentine's Day coming up. So I think that'll be the focus of the internet therapy and maybe even the explore or ignore. So shoot me your relationship situations, questions, or advice in my DMs at ZacharyTheGR8 on social or on secondthoughtpod@gmail.com. All right, let's wrap it up on a positive note, positive quote. Today's positive quote is, grudges are for those who insist that they're owed something. Forgiveness, however, is for those who are substantial enough to move on. Chris Jami, the author of Salome, in every inch, in every mile. And I just really love that quote. Grudges only hurt the person who holds them. It's like holding the blade of the knife and wondering why your hand is bleeding. Or like, it's, what is that saying? Like, grudges or resentment is like taking poison and hoping the other person dies. Like, you just got to let go of grudges. It's tying you down to something that you don't need to be attached to anymore. One practice I've kind of found is helpful for grudges is to write them down, address to a person, write down the grudge that you're holding it, and then actually set it on fire. The note, not the person. That would have been a crazy, that would have been a crazy turn for the positive note, positive quote. Set the note on fire, on physically fire. Because I think seeing your grudge and anger or resentment turn to ashes is very therapeutic. Forgiveness is not easy. Trust me, I know. But it's much easier to go through life with forgiveness than it is grudges. Like, don't be bogged down with grudges. They're probably the heaviest thing that the heart can carry. So that's why I kind of wanted to share that quote with you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that positive quote at the end of the pod. As always, I hope you are leaving feeling informed and entertained. I mean, come on, that restaurant analogy, like thinking back on it, my imagination is really something. Like I really painted a picture. I actually saw Tammy, the server, when I was telling you guys that. Like that was really a lot. But thank you guys for rocking with me on this episode of On Second Thought. I did this episode in like 24 hours because I was just getting back into town from Austin. And I'm trying to drop episodes on Wednesdays, which I think I'm going to miss Wednesday this week. So I'm sorry about that, but that is always the goal. But anyways, thank you guys as always for lending me your ears for 60 minutes this week. Please share the pod with someone if you enjoy it, or screenshot it right now. Tag me on Instagram or Facebook or wherever. Let people know you're listening. I really appreciate it. It truly means a lot to me. If that's not your thing, please subscribe, rate, and review. Share if you care. If you're listening this far, if you've made it to the end, I love you. You're a real one. I'll be back in your ears next week. Talk is cheap until it pays the bills. On Second Thought Podcast, this is Zach School saying I love y'all and stay safe.